That's surprising that the monasteries are struggling a little bit in the US. I felt like that's where Buddhism was going to be transplanted, like Tibetan Buddhism and a lot of Buddhism.
Well, you need the support from the lay people, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, we are live on Facebook and YouTube. Good evening, Dhamma greetings to all of you. So I would like to welcome all of you to our bi-weekly sutra discussion with the Venerable monks and nuns. So first, let us pay our respect and homage to the Buddha, and let us recite Namo Tassa 3 times. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. I pay my respect and homage to him, the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened Buddha. Hey, dear friends in Dhamma. It's such a great joy to have this bi-weekly sutra discussion with our venerable monks. And although we extend our invitations to the venerable nuns, I think they are busy, they have no time to join. But at least we are very fortunate to have some venerable monks who continue to be part of this bi-weekly sutra discussion. So before we get into today's discussion on very beautiful discourse of the Buddha, I would like to introduce our venerable monks to our audience. Venerable Ananda Kalubovila, he's from Cambridge, Ontario, Canada. And then we have Venerable Tudao. He is normally from Florida, but this time he's joining the discussion all the way from Vietnam. So it's early morning, I think 6 o'clock. I don't know, 6 or 7 or 5. So very happy to see you joining the discussion despite your busy day over there and time difference. And then we have Venerable Digale Somowangsha. He's joining the discussion from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Then we have Venerable Bhante Jayasara. He's joining the discussion from New Jersey. Last time you joined the discussion from Indonesian temple in New York City.
Yes, Bhante. Now I'm actually with Bhante Rahula, who comes on here fairly often.
Okay.
So I'm in Maryland. Yeah.
Okay. Today you joined the discussion from Maryland, from Bhante Rahula's temple. I actually sent an email to Bhante Rahula, but since I didn't hear from him, I thought he must be busy. So thank you. And then we have Bhante Kusala. He's joining the discussion from Boston, United States. And then we have Venerable Shanta Sobana. He's joining the discussion from Los Angeles, United States. And we also have some lay devotees on the Zoom platform. And so I would like to welcome all of you. And also our friends who are watching this live program on YouTube and Facebook. I would like to welcome all of you to our bi-weekly sutra discussion. And we also have another venerable monk, Venerable Bhante Nandaloka. He's, I don't see him, his video, but he's here. He's joining the discussion from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. So, last 2 weeks ago, when we had this discussion on the Ambalattika Rahulova Sutta, the parable of the mirror. People really loved it, and in fact, for last 2 weeks, whenever I gave them a talk, and my Dhamma talk was based on that sutra in different ways. So people greatly appreciated the insights and wisdom you have shared with our audience. So today we have another beautiful sutta from the Majjhima Nikaya. That is the Majjhima Nikaya Sutta number 7. Vatthupama Sutta, the parable of the clouds, or the simile of the clouds. And we have named the topic of the discussion as pure mind, impure mind, happy destination, and unhappy destination. So we will have very open discussion about the sutta. So to give the summary of the sutta, I would like to invite Venerable Ananda Kalubovila from Cambridge, Ontario, Canada, to give us a summary of this sutta. Venerable Ananda.
Greetings to Venerables. I see ISOM also joined, so monks and nuns both, and to all the people, they are friends, Kalyana Mittas. So, like Bante mentioned, we have a lot of similes or parables. So we have Vatthupama, Kettupama. Kettupama means taking a field of rice as a parable. And here it's the Vatthupama. Vattu means the vastra, or the robe or the garments that you wear. So, like in many other suttas, this takes place at the Jetavana Grove Anathapindika's Arama monastery, and Savatyan Viharati Jetavana Anathapindika's Arami, which is very commonly used. In fact, in the Shravasti, they say that more than 800 suttas have been discoursed there. And during most of Buddha's life, about 25 seasons were spent in Savatthi. And there are many interesting stories about the patron Anathapindika and how he got the monastery from Jetha. So Jetha being the son of Pasena the king, and how he had to bargain with Jetha. So it's a long story. So there's also discussion that had Buddha really lived in Savatthi for so long, or was the Pali Canon, the oral tradition has been systemized in that region. So there are many interesting discussions about that. But coming back to our Vatthupama Sutta, it starts by saying, monks, suppose a cloth was stained and dirty, and a dryer dipped in some dye or other, whether blue, yellow, red, or pink, it would take the dye badly and be impure in color. And why is that? Because the cloth was not clean. So too, monks, when the mind is defiled, an unhappy destination may be expected. Now, reading this sutta for the first time, I happened to do a class for the Sunday school yesterday, and what I found was reading the Dhamma, like Bhante mentioned, Manopuppangama Dhamma, Manosetta Manomaya, Manasache Paduttena, Vasativa Karotiva. But there's a last part, Tatonan Dukkha Mamveti Chakkancha Vahatopada. Now, that was a parable or a simile, and I was trying to explain it to the kids who are Canadian second generation born kids. What is a Chakkancha Vahatopada? Just as the wheel follows the hoof prints of the ox that draws the cart. Now, if you never have seen a buggy, at least a Mennonite buggy traveling in Elmira or in a place like St. Jacob's, we can't get that parable. So the same goes to this Vatthupama parable. If you have never tried to dye a cloth, it doesn't make much sense. And having said that, I remember that when we got ordained, we used to dye our own robes. It doesn't happen very often now, but we used to dye the robes. And once you try to do that, you understand, like if you have ever done batik dyeing, you can even put a pattern so the dye doesn't stick to the cloth fully. That's the batik pattern essentially. And the same way, when you try to dye a robe, if the robe is impure, if it's not thoroughly washed, it doesn't get dyed or stained homogeneously. There are impurities in it. So understanding the parable is very important, I think, in reading the Tripitaka, the Pali Canon. again, we get overwhelmed with these patterns. We find Uddesa, Niddesa, Patiniddesa pattern, for example, where Buddha sometimes tell it in the Uddesa Pali, just pointing out the topic only or the indication. And then it can go into Niddesa, where there's a more descriptive exposition, and even can take an analytic explanation by the way of question or answer. Question or answer, repeating the question itself again. So it can go into that way. It can be even Patiniddesa, an explanation for the Niddesa itself. So if we don't understand this pattern in the Pali Canon, it can be too overwhelming. Every time I read, especially Majjhima Nikaya, Digha Nikaya, there's a lot of information and you can't find the core of the meaning or the core idea of the sutta. But once you know how to go through, once you know how to tactfully go through these different patterns, you then can identify the beautiful meaning in a very clearly, with clarity. So again, this simile or the parable comes here, and again in Pali Canon, what I mentioned, what I noticed is that there are metaphors and similes, and there are analogies sometimes, which even can become anecdotes or allegories. So it's a whole way of telling a story to a person by giving the meaning, and simile and metaphors are also not the same. So there are slight nuances, and further we go down into this sutta, when we look at the 16 defilements, we see that there are many nuances which can be in real detail. So that's another interesting thing I noticed. So so going back to our Vatthupama Sutta, monks, suppose a cloth were clean and bright, and a dyer dipped into some dye or other, whether blue or yellow or red or pink, it would take the dye well and be pure in color. And why is that? Because the cloth was clean, so too monks, when the mind is undefiled, a happy destination may be expected. Now, first of all, understanding the parable, how to dye a cloth. If you have seen the monks dyeing their own robes, it makes so much sense. Once Bante, we tried to dye some clothes, and we had two parts of the same part of the robe made by two types of cloth. So we got a very funny dyeing. So I can totally relate to this parable. So it really makes when you understand the parable. So going back to the 16 defilements, I thought of taking some time on this. And what monk are the defilements of the mind? Now, it's a beautiful explanation of of most of the defilements that we can think of. So the first one is abhijja visamalabo upakilesu. Covetousness and unrighteous greed are defilements of the mind. Now, another explanation given that there are two words, abhijna and visamalobo. Abhijna means the covetousness, but then it can be for my craving for my own things or craving for the possessions of someone else. So visamalabo and abhijna, two words are mentioned there. And then it also goes to ill will is defilement of the mind. Vyapado chittasa upakileso. Anger is a defilement of the mind. Kodo chittasa upakileso. Hostility. So ill will, anger, hostility, there's a range of ideas given here. When we look at the sort of ideas that we can generate from ill will to anger to hostility, first we find that there are dislikenesses. You just don't like someone or something. And there can be even bitterness. Bitterness can be a grudge, it can be enmity, it can be hostility, and it can be go to the deepest form of enmity and animosity. So the range of ideas, the nuances are covered here. In fact, if you look at the modern day psychology, different thoughts that we discuss in psychology, there are so many nuances of thoughts. Ill will is not the same thing. So it's really beautiful that it takes a lot of time to explain these subtle nuances between the feelings in your mind, especially on the defilements. And then the fifth one is uh, denigration, which is basically the action of unfairly criticizing someone or depreciating someone's worth. Makko chittasa upakileso, depreciation of someone's worth, basically, and unfair criticizing. And then palaso chitta upakileso, the domineering nature. you want to dominate in things, the domineering nature. Then we have Issa Chittasa. So again, we have Issa Machcharya, which is used very closely, envy and jealousy. Now, when I was trying to understand what is the difference between envy and jealousy, it took me some time to really understand the difference between Icha and Machcharya. What is envy and what is jealousy? And I found a nice way to think about it. Now, in order to be jealous, let's take an example for jealousy. There's a couple who's a boy and a girl, and there's another person, a third person who comes in between them, and the boy or the girl can be jealous of that other person. So in order for jealousy to occur, you need more than two people. You need about three people. But envy, you just need two people. That's a way of looking at the subtle nuance between the jealousy and envy. You can be envious of someone's qualities, someone that person has. But in order to be jealous, you also need to see someone who's trying to snatch that from your possession. So there are very subtle nuances, same, very similar words, but it beautifully explains a range of a plethora of ideas and emotions in our mind, especially in defilements. And then you have hypocrisy, maya chitta supakileso. But then this hypocrisy, it's the way it is especially written in the Rhys Davis dictionary, for example, claiming to have a moral standard or beliefs to which one's own behavior does not conform. So we also find in the Satara Parajika, for example, pretending to have qualities that you do not have. Which is something, if a monk does that, he's supposed to be taken away from the robes because he does not deserve to be in robes, the Satara Parajika. So the same way, the hypocrisy is not just being normally hypocritic by being hypocritic towards showing off, telling that you have the best qualities, you do not have raga, dvesha, moha in your mind, but to have that, in that sense only this is used. And then you also have sataya chittasa upakileso, the betrayal, the fraudulent nature. And tamha chittasa upakileso, the obstinacy. Now, tamha again is a beautiful word. Tamha is very close to the word stamba. Stamba means a pillar. Sometimes you can be really stubborn, not flexible. So that's also defilement mentioned here. And then you have the saramo chittasa upakileso. The presumptuous or the presumptions you have, the arrogant, disrespectful, and transgressing nature where you don't understand the limits and overcome the limits. That's another way to put it, presumptuousness. There's another meaning, doing tit for tat. When I looked at the Sinhala meaning, saramha means that doing tit for tat, you always want to do better than what the other person has done. And then you have another very closely related three ideas, mano, atimano, mado. Mano chitta supakileso, atimano, and mado chitta supakileso. Again, it's a range of ideas. Mano generally means the conceit or pride, and atimano, a little more of that arrogance, and then the vanity, mado. There's also a document I read recently, from being slightly narcissistic, how you become malignantly narcissistic. So again, I think in the modern day, people who are in search of the emotions, psychology, they find the very subtle shades of different emotions people have. So this is a fantastic example of putting it in a beautiful manner. And the last we have is pamado chitta supakileso. The negligence is a defilement of mind, or indolence, laziness, and lax or neglectful nature, carelessness. So those are the 16 defilements which are discussed in this sutta. So the parable is that these defilements are like the dirty cloth. This dirtiness stains your cloth. So the same way these defilements stain your mind. So your outlook towards the world will be different. If you have defiled, the destination won't be happy. If you are undefiled, the destination will be happy, like a clean cloth absorb all that color. So that's the idea. But then the next part goes on to what do we do about it? So very interestingly, the first thing is knowing monks covetousness and unrighteousness, greed to be defilement of the mind. Knowing, monks, is the way to first battle this. You understand that I am like this. So even if you look at the Alcohol Anonymous 12 steps, first thing is you identify that I am alcoholic. So the same way, I am like this. Understanding that and knowing that is the first one. When in the monk who thus knows that covetousness and unrighteous greed are a defilement of the mind, this covetousness and unrighteous greed have been abandoned, relinquished. So first is knowing, and then how you abandon it or relinquish it. He thereupon gains unwavering confidence in Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. So that is the path on practically how to do it. And then it goes to say, he knows I have given up, renounced, let go, abandoned, and relinquished the defilements. And he gains enthusiasm for goal, gains enthusiasm for Dhamma, gains gladness connected with Dhamma. When he is gladdened, joy is born in him. Being joyous in mind, his body becomes tranquil. When his body is tranquil, he feels happiness, and the mind of him who is happiness becomes concentrated. I will let the other monks emphasize on or even interpret on this point, but we find this often repeated in many suttas. Pamutitassa piti jayati, piti manassa kayo passammati, passadda kayo sukhang vedeti, sukhino chittang samadhiti, which is really beautiful. So how abandoning, relinquishing these defilements lead you to the tranquil nature, the happy nature, and the concentrated nature of mind. And then it goes to say, if a monk of such virtue, such concentration, and such wisdom, eats almsfood consisting of choice, he'll rise together with various sources and curries, even that will be no obstacle for him. So it goes to another parable. Again, if you don't understand rice,
Yeah.
it becomes a problem. So I remember back in the day, before we had supermarkets and before the rice came in packets, we had loose rice, and the rice had a lot of black rice. So the mother or the grandmother would pick the black rice and the stones and clean the rice. So what this says is that if a monk, he understands such virtues with such concentration and with such wisdom, even if he eats rice which is not supposed to be good, it won't be an obstacle for him, which means that he has gained a resistance or a resilience over this negative nature. And it says, just as cloth that is stained and dirty becomes clean and bright with the help of pure water. Now, it's another beautiful simile. Or just as gold becomes clean and bright with the help of a furnace, so too, if a monk of such virtue, such concentration, and such wisdom eats almsfood consisting of choice, he'll rise together with various sauces and curries, even that will not be an obstacle for him. So again, the parable given is that pure water can clean this dirty cloth and makes it a clean cloth. Another beautiful example is that if you have really seen silver or gold being melted with a furnace, you see that the gold oxidized or silver oxidized vanishes and it becomes the pure gold or pure silver when it's exposed to a furnace. So that's a beautiful example again. And the one who abides, having suffused with a mind of loving kindness, suffused with a mind of compassion, sympathetic joy, equanimity, free from enmity and ill will. Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upekha. The 5 abodes of the Brahma, Satara Brahma Vihara is taken into this sutta. So I think once you start reading the Pali canon, our friend was telling that he doesn't understand Pali and he would like to really understand Pali before the discussion occurred. You notice very similar things all over. So it's a pattern. Once you get the pattern, it becomes so much easy. You don't need to understand everything. The same pattern occurs in many places. So here, when he abides, having suffused means covered, suffused the mind with loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, he will be free from enmity and ill will. So there's a fantastic proposal how you get over these defilements that is also mentioned. And then it cuts to a whole different story about Sundarika Bharadwaja. It even looks like how is it connected to this story? But anyway, I'll finish it because it's in the Sutta. So there's a Brahman called Sundarika Bharadwaja who appears. He asked Buddha, does Master Gautama go to the Bahuka river to bathe? Now, why Bahuka river? There was this belief that if you go to the Bahuka river, you will be purified. In order to be purified of your soul, of your defilements, you need to go to a river and bathe. And then Buddha says, you don't have to go to Gaya and go to a river to get yourself purified. You can even you can even bathe from your own well in your own house. But if you practice this, losing the defilements, renouncing them, and if you practice the Satara Brahma Vihara, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, you don't need to go all the way to some river and bathe and try to impure yourself. You can even bathe at your own well and become purified. So that is what the sutta says, and I will invite our other monks to discuss the main idea of this sutta. So as far as the sutta goes, these are the contents of the sutta.
Beautiful, beautifully summarized the essence of the sutta of discussion today. Thank you so much, Venerable Ananda, for this beautiful the summary. And so today, in fact, I said when I was introducing the Venerable monks and nuns, Venerable Ayya Soma was not here by that moment. So she is here after a long time. And I see even in YouTube channel, some people are very happy to see you, Venerable Ayya Soma. And actually, we had no clue. Venerable Ayya Soma lost her father a few months back in Italy. And that's why we didn't see her. And also today I received the good news that Venerable Ayya Soma is thinking of establishing a monastery in Italy, in her hometown. And this 135 acres property that you're interested in. And so I would like to highly encourage our friends, if possible, please help Venerable Ayya Soma purchasing that property in Italy. So we can have an Italian Buddhist monastery led by Italian Buddhist nun. So Venerable Ayya Soma, very happy to see you today. Do you have anything to say about it before we get into discussion?
Thank you so much, Bhante, for inviting me and for sharing about the project. Yes, actually, it's the project kind of is coming into being very much in relation to what the Venerable was talking about in terms of the of the sutta that we're speaking today. So how auspicious, because yeah, in the past couple of years, actually, my parents have been a little bit ill. So I've been going back and forth to Italy. So that's why I was traveling a lot. Also with Bhante Kusa, actually, who has joined in one of the trips, where we were also connecting with local folks in Italy. But I was spending most of the time with my parents. And then in the fall, my dad passed away. And for the past 4 months, actually, I've been taking care of my mom full time. So it's been very challenging, 16 hours, of work every day, no weekends, no break. So it's been a really intense practice, and actually also a great opportunity to also look at the mind and look at the kilesas, look at what actually it's really the teaching of this sutta, because a lot of the precepts and the practice, is about abstaining from conduct or patterns of mind that we normally think, make sense. Perhaps we think we're entitled to feel the way we feel, or that it's the appropriate conduct given the circumstances, or simply we cannot help ourselves as the habit is so strong. We just get triggered, in so many different ways. So sometimes as Buddhists, we approach the practice, by putting a lot of effort into trying to be good Buddhists and, try to live to the ideal of the noble disciple described in the suttas. But perhaps really we're not quite there yet, right? So it is a path. So there's different stages that we go through, and that requires a lot of patience, right? The highest austerity, as it says in the suttas. So we were joking the other day at Empty Cloud Monastery that it is not patience that is the highest austerity, but it is being patient while being irritable that is the highest austerity, because you have to be patient and also deal with irritation, which is very unpleasant. So it's really intense to do that austerity with an extra bearing of the irritation. But when we actually know that the irritation is hurting us, then the mind naturally turns away and becomes dispassionate. So we have the opportunity to really stop our interest, our deliciousness in the unwholesome behavior. So I've been practicing a lot of this thanks to my mom, like really intensively. So because as I mentioned, I've been taking care of her non-stop for the past 4 months since my dad passed away. And but it's been a really real blessing to actually practice in this way, this sort of dhutanga, because with parents and family members, these things can actually, our kilesas can really show up sometimes. They can really be triggered, since we have had many past lives together, and we can have very strong habits with each other, and especially also with caregiving, when someone is having difficulties with their bodies, difficulties with their minds, and we have to take care of them, and perhaps they are not particularly grateful, or they're not particularly nice to us, even though we're related to them, and we feel that there can be a lot of different emotions that we can feel entitled to feel. Maybe we haven't slept, we haven't had a break, there might be so many different things can happen. But until we see the drawbacks of our kilesas, of the unwholesomeness, of how it stains the heart and mind, and how we suffer when we hold to that, when we try to be patient while also being irritated, then we can ask ourselves, why don't I just drop this irritation and I just keep the patience? And when we're able to do so, we can let go of that silly suffering that we were clinging to for no reason except for the wrong view that we felt it was necessary or correct. And that is like a little taste of liberation through knowing that the kilesas are such kilesas. So yeah, this project has been coming also in Italy because of my experience actually with my mom, and recollecting also the teachings of the Buddha, that he says that no matter how much we take care of our parents, we can't repay them. We can only repay them in one way, which is to teach them the Dhamma. So then now the conditions have come into being that we found this beautiful forest in my dad's hometown, where we brought him after he passed away. And hopefully then my mom will be able to move there in that town, and we will be able to share the Dhamma with her in Italian, not in English, because she doesn't speak English. So she's having a bit of a hard time here at Empty Cloud Monastery. So this is a little bit how these things have come into being.
Oh, thank you so much, Venerable Ayya Soma, and of course we are talking about how Buddha is saying in this sutta, when the mind is defiled, and an unhappy destination may be expected, and when the mind is undefiled and pure, a happy destination may be expected. So through the monastery that we are about to establish in Italy, the whole purpose of the establishment of that monastery is to help people purify their mind and heart, because you love the Italian people. You want all Italians go to this happy destination, heaven and nirvana.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
I would like to encourage all our friends to support And of course, he will have our support as well. So I don't have any particular questions to ask from our venerable monks and nuns, and of course, Venerable Ananda beautifully summarized the sutta. And now, just maybe I could ask a very simple question from all of you. Now, here in the sutta, the Buddha highlighted 16 upakilesas, the defilements. Now, the greed or covetousness, ill will, anger, the denigration, hostility, domineering, envy, jealousy, hypocrisy, fraud, obstinacy, presumption, arrogance, vanity, negligence, unmindfulness. So, what do you think of this? Like we all are human beings. It doesn't even the monks, though we have become monks, we could see these upakleshas, defilements in our heart, in our life. And of course, people also have this, no matter what faith tradition you belong to, where you live. And these upakleshas can be seen. I think, for me, I see them as the weaknesses. So when we feed these upakleshas, and of course, an unhealthy life can be expected. And so now, because of this, people might be suffering big. Now, how do we help people? What are these things? Now, of course, in the Sutta, Buddha gives a technique how to overcome them. And once we overcome them, what will happen to us at the end? Now, let us get into this discussion. I see Venerable Trudeau raising his hand from all the way from Vietnam. Venerable Trudeau, what's in your mind?
Thank you so much. Salutations to all of the venerables, bhikkhus, and bhikkhunis present here today. Just wanted to give a shout out to Aya Soma in the house. She's been such a source of inspiration even for me when I need to further my practice and study, to hear a bhikkhuni explain in detail. So Empty Cloud Monastery has been a great contributor in the Dhamma. And I did share that page too of Empty Cloud Italia on my Facebook page, and we're going to do what we can to support you all. And I hope to visit Italy over there and experience it. I already have a student here who's going to be furthering his education in Italy, so you bet I might be around the corner soon. Okay, so I apologize. I only had 30 minutes to prepare for this very long sutta, so I reviewed it as we were coming along. Okay. So number 3, anyone who has access to insight, when we access this sutta, we've gone paragraph number 3, it talks about the what. So before psychology came along and people were depressed and anxious and have bipolar and schizophrenia, people were having problems describing what is that? Like, why are you in bed all the time? Why are you recycling the past? Why are you apprehending the future? Why are you hot and cold? Like 1 second you're happy and the other second you're off the walls here. What the Buddha had did was he gave us a what. So 2 things in life, I believe, you need to describe the what, and we need to come up with the how, the solution to solve each problem. And long before psychology came along, comes the Buddha. And it is through suttas like this that gives us the what. What is it? Why are we like this? Very comprehensive in details when we take one and analyze it carefully and slowly and thoroughly and comprehensively and effectively. When we all know that even one defilement alone can take a lifetime to resolve in my clinical experience. When looking at covetousness, right? Some of these things I really had to like look up in the dictionary. A strong wish to have something, especially something that belongs to someone else. That's covetedness. And this I just wanted to, for the lay people to sit and reflect carefully and screen yourself. You have to police yourself. Have I done this before? Am I doing this now? And then moving down the sutta to see how I can resolve this slowly, no different than cleaning my plate that is filled with steak and grease and all of this messiness on there. Unrighteousness, greed, so that touches the desire in Buddhism. But there is good desire in Buddhism, like the desire for enlightenment is like the best desire you can have. Here it talks about the not very judicious unrighteous greed, and that's something that we all want to be aware of with the lawyer in our head, because once that greed takes over and hijack our lighthouse in our head, we tend to try to make it righteous. We tend to side with the lawyer in our head. Let me find a way that I can somehow defend myself if someone was to find out how unrighteous this particular desire for money, for status, for fame, and so on and so on. Hostility, yeah, we see a lot of that in the world. The less news you see, the better. Denigration, what is denigration? The act of unfairly criticizing someone or something. So we want to look inwards into our own faults, finding our own faults and fixing them. We do this a lot. Anything that is exterior of us, we tend to gravitate towards. And domineering and envy and hypocrisy, we see it. That's very common. I just wanted to hit some of the key points in here, some of the things that we overlook often every day. Conceit, that's touching we love ourselves a little too long, a little too much, a little too deep. Same thing with vanity. Okay, all right, here we go. I want to hit it right on the point here with negligence. Now, after hearing all of the venerables that will contribute at the end of today, number 16, which is negligence, which is one of the biggest thing on my list, negligence. And I've always said over and over again, you have the privilege to know and a duty to act. And our great philosophers have said that every man is guilty for the good that he did not do. So we see a lot of this in the West, where we hear things, we acknowledge it. There's some people out there that you guys know that they're deaf. I do TikTok videos, and they're like, Venerable, can you give us that subtitle? And I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I'm still learning how to do that. But they're deaf, they cannot hear, they can only read. And then there's people who are blind and cannot hear, so they don't have the privilege to know. And for some of the able bodies out there who can see, who can hear, and how you can contribute to our world and contribute to the purity of your mind and the contribution towards society, negligence. So I just want everyone to just meditate on these 16 things. If you really to write and journal these out, it hits deep into the bloodstreams of how each of us have some form, some degree, some intensity of these things. And like Venerable Aya Soma says, when life tests us, my mom is here traveling with me. She drove me crazy yesterday, by the way. And I was just like, and I had to remind myself, the Buddha had done said, if you ain't got nothing good to say, don't say anything at all. And if you say something that is not good, especially to your mother, it will constitute unwholesomeness and bad karma. And I really had to keep noble silence. Yeah. So, those who are closest to us tend to push our buttons in many ways. And I like that, because whatever troubles us, that is our teacher. Ajahn Chah said. So I just wanted to contribute in the initial of this discussion, and thank you for having me. I'd like to yield the floor for the rest of the monastic order.
Thank you, Venerable Trudeau. That was beautiful. Next, I see Venerable Shanta Sobana from Los Angeles raising his hand. What's in your mind, Venerable Shanta Sobana?
Oh, thank you very much, Venerable Sirs. And actually, I really appreciate that Venerable Bhante Saranapala and all other Venerable monks bringing these sutras to table and try to discuss and share it with the most of people, because I heard a lot of our students also listening and following this.
So before you continue, can I also tell the audience that, I'm so last 2 weeks ago, I forgot to acknowledge you. You actually received a certificate for your great services from the city of Los Angeles, from the state of California, from the federal government. What a great joy for us to see a young Buddhist monk like you receiving such recognition from the 3 levels of government in the United States. So I just want to congratulate you.
Oh, thank you. And so, especially when it comes to this sutra, that this is one of the important sutra today that we can share something, because when it comes to world, nowadays we see everybody look for happiness and satisfaction. So, and when it comes to happiness, most of time people try to gain something from outside. It's kind of like that's why this most of time the people talk about this kind of like a visualizing and dreaming about things, and kind of like asking from universe to gain the happiness or the success to them. So this gratification we develop in the world, but when it comes to Buddha's teaching, that it's very clearly mentioned, the mind is the Purana, mind is the creator. So, and at the same time, we have to remember the very nature of the mind itself, it is clear. So this, all the defilements come from outside. So if anybody look for happiness or the satisfaction or the success, or even if the spiritual development, what that person need to do, where that person need to start, not to gain something from outside, and slowly start to get out thing from their own mind. So because this all all these departments here, it's that added on through our journey by misunderstanding, or maybe there are many other reasons around us. But if we look very carefully, according to this sutra that what the Buddha mentioned, and also in other sutras, that mostly the very basic how we can purify our mind. So then when it comes to our day-to-day life, sometimes that the mind get polluted, that we get into certain situations because of many reasons. And when we go to purify the mind, and nowadays there is a kind of like a people misunderstand most of time, because this meditation is kind of like a becoming very people have kind of like a very romantic way of relationship with meditation. And people think all the problems can fix by meditation. But here, no, because when it comes to purify the mind, we have to use very many different way of methods. And especially when we kind of like, as example, when we clean the cloth, when we wash the cloth, and nowadays we just put it to the washing machine sometimes, but there are certain dirts the washing machine cannot take it to. So we have to get it, we have to maybe brush it, clean it, and we have to use different kind of detergents, or maybe we have to apply different kind of chemicals to take out that dirt out of the cloth. The same like sometimes that whatever the defilements that we go through, whatever the defilements we have, we can't just maybe clean it only just practicing meditation. So we have to build up certain way of disciplinary life, self-discipline, and at the same time, we have to practice the generosity and especially the loving kindness and compassion. So in that way, we have to use many different ways, especially when it comes to the vipassana level of that purify the mind. It's say you have to be like a bulldog. So you have to use all the methods, not only one way to get out of everything. It cannot happen because this all is not a kind of like that related to the way we think. This everything is related to cause and effect. That's why when the mind start to get out of this defilement, naturally it start to get into the calm, tranquility state, the happiness, the joy, the clarity, and then deeply it can get into the tranquility state, and from there to liberation. So it's kind of like a process and a very basic way on the surface level. But today, most of time what we see, people are kind of like thinking this separating this conventional level and the spiritual level is two different things. But when it comes to, we know, idanandati pechanandati, it is not a kind of like the satisfaction or the success or the liberation come out of from very different way of path. It is the same thing, the way we handle our eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. So if I give an example to understand this, water and the ice is fundamentally the same property. There is no different properties. But when we take the heat out of the water, it becomes ice. So the same like the way we experience our eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind with our deeper intention can create a certain kind of defilements. So if the person understand this, that's why it say, if the person know that whatever the defilements carry within themselves, that is the very beginning of this, that the purification or that is the very beginning to get out of it. So then in day-to-day life, we see most of time when we into some kind of defilements, and sometimes we are the one who really appreciate it. If we have our friends, family members, whoever we like, whoever we love around us, whoever have any kind of defilement, sometimes we are the one who validate that. We are the one who appreciate it. As example, what I see today with the social medias and the internet. So what happened when the war go around the world? So when somebody start to fight with other person, sometimes we put their country flag and saying, "Oh, we are in your side. Go for it." It's kind of like we are the one who validating these defilements rather than recognizing, "Oh no, this is not should happen." So then it is very important here to recognize. So whatever the defilements that we have, if the person capable to recognize and understand it, and there is a very that the beautiful simile. Once you recognize if there is any defilement related to yourself, if you carry something like when we vomit, we have no intention to take it back. So same like if we have the defilements, we have to get out it and get it out from us and stay away from it. And another thing is kind of like, just imagine, in case if a snake falling to our body, we try to throw it away, not to keep it. So same like if we know any kind of greed, hatred, delusion, or related to this, all the 16 defilements or any other thing, if related to us, if it is within us, even little bit, we have to understand to stay away from it. So that is the beginning. Rather than self-validating it, appreciating it, hold it to it, or harboring it, or clinging it to it, we have to criticize it and stay away from it, and without repeating or empowering it. So in that way, what will happen? It gives a kind of like a space or window to go forward through this purification. And when it comes to this sutra, especially that it's more than the very kind of like a surface level of defilement. This give a kind of like a more higher level, kind of like a very extreme level of mental behavior. So as example, we all have the anger, we all have the jealousy, we all have the kind of like laziness. But here in this sutra is deeply mentioned that how when a person go into very extreme level, it has power to take that person to more kind of like unwholesome actions. So then it is very important to look into ourselves and recognize our own responsibility. If anybody look for happiness or the satisfaction or the success, even in the conventional life, without purifying the mind, there is no way we can gain it. But what we see in the today, most of time, for when we look for happiness and satisfaction, especially this young generation nowadays, everybody try to kind of like have a dream to become successful, and they always try to go towards the world and try to do whatever they like to gain the money or this conventional level of material success. But we have to understand, when it comes to the very depth of the life, without having the clear mind or without purifying the mind, there is no way we can gain the happiness or satisfaction. So it is better. Of course, we need the material world, but this all conditioned by the very quality of the mind that we carry within ourselves. So then at least few minutes every day, if we have the ability to go into that, having the introspection, look into our own mind and build up the clarity there and get out of the defilements rather than gaining something, I think end of the day, they can find more better life that practicing this. So that is what I want to share. Thank you.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful insight. Very practical, very practical. I think, you know, these are the typical weaknesses we have to acknowledge. This is not about simply transforming others. This is transforming oneself, right? So this is what Buddha taught us in a very practical way. So thank you so much for sharing that practical aspect of the sutta. And next I see Venerable Kusala. And in fact, Venerable Bhante Kusala was also traveling in Sri Lanka and India and went to Rishikesh, even sharing beautiful pictures of that, I don't know, the Ganges River between the mountain in Rishikesh. And then people go there to even take a bath, maybe believing it's a sacred river that purifies you. So what was your experience? How do you see this sutta, Venerable Kusala?
I did it myself, Bhante, when I was in.
Now you're purified then.
I am, yeah, externally purified. You know, it's a very important point in this sutta also, because the Pali says antarena sinanena, the inner bathing.
Yeah.
That is what I see here. And I think the Buddha lived in a society where, you know, this was happening.
Yeah.
And he looked at Sundarika Bharadwaja, and, you know, this was like telling, what you are doing is not right. You know, you all have been going to the river and saying, now I am clean, you know, having done all kinds of things and still not feeling accountable for what you have done, and saying, okay, I bathe in the river and I'm done. There's a danger in accepting that kind of teaching or practice, really. So in Rishikesh, the water is so clean and pure. We were at the foothills of the Himalayas. So it was just this couple of weeks ago. The water was so inviting, but if you go all the way into the river, you can get carried away with the current. So I managed not to get that far. People were warning me against that. And it's very cold water. There's not, you can't stay in that water that long. So I anyway did it for health benefits. I know I have committed many many things that I need to purify, but the water purification does not do it for me. So I look within my own mind for purity. I see the point here in the sutta, something like mind creates hell or heaven.
Yeah.
It's our own mind that creates. Especially since when you shared that email, it's about destiny. If you have been living a hellish life, you are destined to go to a hell. If you have been living a life of purity, then you will end up going to a pure place. And so the Buddha is encouraging us to come to that purity and recognize these 16 defilements in us. And like you said, naturally we humans feel these defilements, and some of us may not feel all of them, but time to time when conditions are present, we may feel them. For me personally, the lesson comes sometimes immediately, sometimes years later, months after the experience. And that is something I observed. And no matter how much practice I put into understanding some of the wisdom, it takes years of being patient with your practice to get the point. What I see in the sutta is, arriving at true knowledge. It looks like this is setting a higher goal, but coming to true knowledge here is vijja, the true knowledge, and seeing how much avijja we have, how much false knowledge we have about things, especially because of these 16 defilements, upakilesas. If you look at the word upakilesa, kilesa already means defilements. Upakilesa, the preposition, the prefix, upa sounds like it brings you closer to defilements. Like, it's you are just falling into defilements, and you keep falling, instead of falling into something like stillness, samadhi, you fall into defilements, and it's very unpleasant when that happens. And we can take examples from maybe the Zen Buddhist tradition. This is a little story. This soldier went to a monk asking, teach me, I have only few minutes, teach me hell or heaven. And the monk remained silent. And the soldier was, asking this question 3 times. The monk remained silent. And the soldier lost his patience. At that point, he pulled out his sword, and he was going to threaten the monk. And the monk opened his eyes and said, "That is hell." And then he put the sword back in his case, and the monk said, "That is heaven." So it doesn't take much words to explain something simple like that. Losing patience with the simplest things that we do, and we know that these are great things, like looking after, like Ayasoma is doing this noble work of looking after her mom. I wish I have the opportunity to do that, and look after her mom myself. But given our different locations and limitations, and maybe your mom would not allow me to do this. But again, in doing that, and when it's a beautiful thought, but when we practically start doing that, we see how challenging it can be. And I see that with my own father. I lived with him for a couple of days in his monastery. My father is an ordained monk, and I see how how challenging it can be. He wants to do things his way, and I want to do things my way. And then there's a lot of explanations needed. Sometimes, like when the Three Dao said, we need to be silent. And I do also try to explain the Dhamma I know to him, and he loves it. And then in the evening, he says, I forgot everything you said. Can you write that down for me? So all my day, I think, okay, he understood everything I said, and he's happy. And again, you have to repeat that task. And but of course, there's only so much time we have with them. And in those moments, we create memories that will last our lifetime. We also don't know how much time we have in this world, but the memories we create with them will stay with us. And it's those memories perhaps will be coming to us, teaching something to us. Every moment, these memories will visit us. So I think we monks, of course, are doing this very work of purifying our mind when we speak, the actions that we follow, and how much effort we make. We do understand that it is personal responsibility, but also we know we put so much trust in the Sangha, in the other monks and nuns, when it comes to our conduct and purity. In putting our trust in the Sangha, it's a beautiful network that the Buddha has created for us, to go back to report to senior monks, report to more experienced, wise monks, and then we learn. As we learn, we feel very humble, and we continue inspired in our path. So that is why I believe creating a monastery in Italy is needed for more Sangha to enter, and more Sangha to live and practice the Dhamma. And I wholeheartedly support a project like that, to Ayasoma, to Bhante Sudaso, and all the Sangha here. I believe, I think beyond words, maybe we can also share this fundraiser in our community emails that we send out to our communities, and maybe even hold our next discussion or any subsequent discussion about this whole project based on the suttas or based on Vinaya or something that we like to highlight. Maybe that is a way to create awareness more and more here in the United States, and in also in Canada and other places, so that we bring it back to our back to light, and we discuss it further and create more opportunities for Sangha and support that wonderful noble project. So with that, maybe I will let other monks to continue the discussion. Thank you, Bhante, for the opportunity to discuss.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante Kusala, for sharing your insights and your experience with us. And in fact, I think our audience may not know this. In Bhante Kusala's family, Bhante Kusala is a monk, his younger brother is a monk, and his father is a monk. So 3 monks in one family, father and 2 sons. And also thank you for sharing your personal experience of your visit to Rishikesh, and I think how we look at it, even having this discussion is a way of purifying ourselves, at least for 1.5 hours. As Buddha taught us, the Dhammiva Kata Aryasu Tunhi Bhav. Either you talk about the Dharma, you observe the noble silence. So we do this to purify our mind and heart. And also I'm very happy to see there are many people who join us on Facebook and YouTube for this great purpose. And next time, actually, I normally go to two islands in Mediterranean Sea, Corsica and Sardinia. The Sardinia belongs to Italy, Corsica belongs to France. Next time, my visit to those two islands, I will pop up at your monastery, Venerable Ayusomo. And also, we are very happy to see another monastery is being built. I think they're starting in England. So very happy to see the active European nuns, going for these great projects for the greater benefit of the people. So next, I see Venerable Digale Somavangsha from Vancouver. So Venerable Somavangsha, what's in your mind? So please feel free to share your insights with us.
Peruan Sarna, dear most venerable Bhante Sarnapala and other venerable monks, nuns, and dear Dhamma friends, I would like to explain a little thing about this sutra with my simple language. And this is very beautiful and important sutra. According to this sutra, human mind is like a dirty clothes. I heard that there is a venerable one of the venerables explain about dirty clothes and cleaning it using the clean water, and then as well as according to this sutra, we always work with bad thoughts. We all know we are wearing clothes, especially monks. We are wearing robes. How many times we clean this, wash this robe like this? Buddha take this cloth to simile as to clean our, purify our mind. And with this example, that is the nature of the sensual world. Always our mind, the nature of our mind is creating some bad thoughts. But wise people understand this nature and try to create unwholesome thoughts, create wholesome thoughts against unwholesome thoughts. When we understand this process, we can understand the world, and I mean the actual world and its function. This sutra is very valuable to understand the hidden mind temperaments. According to some, we discuss about, according to the sutra, there are 16 defilements. According to those defilements, there are some, we know the special defilement is, important defilement is desire. Desire character, according to the Buddha's explanation, Visuddhimagga. The Visuddhimagga explains desire character, desire thoughts, desire character can easily understand the Dhamma. Because, for example, Queen Kema and other venerable in Swarnakaraka, like this, when we read these sutra, these stories, we can see easily those people can easily turn to their mind to the impurity, impurity of our body, to see impurity of our body. And as well as I would like to share, I read an article about research of human brain. According to that article, I think it is done by an American doctor, as I remember. According to his research, he says that the human brain has two parts. two faculties as left and right. One side has been processed and installed bad things that is naturally installed. When we are born in this world, naturally, that is why we as human beings we are doing bad things. We tend to do bad things, wrong things. Naturally, we are doing those bad things. It has process. That is why we feel to do bad things. Other side is of our brain is empty. When we are born, it is empty. Naturally, it is empty because we must fill it with good habits, good thoughts like charity, morality, and meditation, like these good things. It is very hard to practice good things because naturally our brain and mind tend to bad things. That is why we good people have to face some when we try to do good habits, good things to the society. Always we have to face some troubles. That is why most people practice bad things. Very few people are only practicing good things. It is like it is very difficult to grow flowers in our garden. They need we know they need much water, fertilizer, and caring. We need to do all those things. But weeds doesn't need water, fertilizer, or taking care of them. But naturally, weeds are growing without the water, without fertilizer. If we need to grow flower plants, we need to pull out weeds first and must grow flowers, flower seeds. If we need to see a beautiful flower garden, it is like our mind, like our thoughts. So we must understand uh, we also have so many bad thoughts. We need to pull out all those bad things and understand in these bad thoughts, and we need to pull out them, and then we can grow good thoughts and good habits. That is my thought. Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Venerable Sir.
Venerable Somangsha. You're doing a great job, by the way, the speaking up in English and sharing your insights. You brought up some important metaphors. Even I really love how the weeds don't need any water or fertilizers to grow. They grow anyways. That's why people suffer. But we need to pull them out and plant the good ones to grow the flowers, and we need to nurture them, water them every day, so that it's a hard work. So I think that wisdom is very important, and also what you pointed out about the research. I think this is for the knowledge of our audience. If you what Venerable Somangsha talked about is a research done by some neuroscientists, especially Richard Davidson and Rick Hansen. Actually, Rick Hansen authored 2 books on it, The Buddha's Brain and Hardwiring Happiness, and there actually he talks about this research. So thank you so much, Venerable Somangsha, for bringing up that point. And next, I see Venerable Ananda from Cambridge, Ontario, Canada. What's in your mind?
Yeah, Bhante, when Venerable Somansha mentioned the scientist, I think it was Richard Davidson. I recently come across a quote that publication he made, which was based on Richard Davidson findings that emotions and intelligence, how it is connected. And there's a famous saying that the most kind people are the most intelligent people also. And looking back again, Venerable Tridao mentioned that before psychology evolved in the world, Buddhism has been doing this research in a much deeper level. And if we look at the Karaniya Metta Sutta, which is about the Sutta of compassion, Sakko, Ujuja Sujuja, Sakko. If you are efficient, if you are a crafty person, you can become a kind person. So I think it has a strong correlation of being skillful, not only in the Ragadesha Moha skillfulness, but even in the day-to-day life skillfulness. More you become skillful, it has a linkage with the compassion. The kindness and intelligence are very much related. And also, I think the world has started looking at intelligence from different angles. Back in the day, it was only intelligent quotient, which is IQ. but now it has evolved to emotional intelligence, and even adversity quotient, AQ. How good are you at adverse situations? How you can withstand adverse situations? So it reminds of the Chatubbhavatehi Asampakampyo. No matter what happens around the world, if you can remain neutral and equanimous to that, that's you being intelligent. So Richard Nixon specially mentions that if a person is kind, which means that he also has other, his mind is more creative, so he can come up with more solutions, and he sees much better ways to do things rather than just animalistically reacting to something. So again, coming back to our sutta, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, it sort of brings us how we can defeat those defilements and become an intelligent and a kind person. That's what I want to.
Yeah, thank you. I was actually thinking about that point, so you just hit the nail. So thank you, Venerable Ananda. And I would be interested in hearing more from Venerable Ayya Soma about this and how she thinks. I see Venerable Trudeau raising his hand. What's in your mind?
Oh, is it me or
Yeah,
Venerable Ayya Soma?
you.
Me. Okay. So we spoke about the cloth and cleaning of the cloth. I spoke about the dishes, cleaning of the dishes. Some of these defilements are like that big fat grease on there, like that steak that's been sitting there for so long that you need the wire, the metal brush to get the steak off. So when we look at the sutta on access to insight, number 8, paragraph number 8, we see it says, he gains unwavering confidence in the Sangha. The Blessed One's disciples has entered on a good way, the straight way, enter on the true way, the proper way. And also to look at paragraph. So I just wanted to slow down a little bit. So the monastic order is like the most, this is a fun analogy. We're like the detergent for your defilement. We're the living Dhamma. I mean, obviously, all of us can reflect what would the world look like without the monastic order. To sit there and research this. We were the first psychologist 2,567 years ago. Okay? We were the first psychotherapist. We were the first therapist in order to take in the Dhamma, understand it, and then serve the people and their sicknesses and illnesses of the mind. So in regards to the sutta, one can see that we're like this very powerful detergent, like OxyClean level, like the best money could buy type detergent, and very potent, penetrative. For in America, they have a lot of advertisement, tough on grease, for your plate. So they sell these very expensive detergent so that it can guarantee the nice squeaky clean. And that's what we want for all of you, is that some of us have a particular way of teaching the Dhamma, penetrative way, to apply the best available medicine onto this type of defilements. I think other monks explain it very lightly, but on a clinical level for me is that some of these things are very, very serious as it permeates our society into the fabric, into the moral fabrics and fibers of everyday life, and how it can very toxic, and how it can poison our mind and poison our bloodstream. So I just wanted to reemphasize the importance of the Sangha, and to also reflect on the entirety of this. You can meditate on this for like the entire 3 more months. Each word that is being expounded in this sutta is a very well chosen sutta. And lastly, paragraph number 10, he knows, I have given up, renounced, let go, abandoned, and relinquished the defilement, gains enthusiasm for the goal, which is Nibbana, gains enthusiasm for the Dhamma, gains gladness connected with the Dhamma. When he is glad and joy is born in him, being joy is in mind, body becomes tranquil, body is tranquil. He feels happiness. we also need to look very carefully, very slowly about the body being tranquil, because these defilements, you see, they add in to control, anatta lakkhana. What does that mean when the body's not tranquil? So in my clinical experience, we see people with OCD, ADHD. Look at the emotional component of ADHD. They don't sit well alone. They don't sit well with the silence, always having to keep busy to treat the symptoms of whatever it is that is underlying the defilement, right? The root cause of it. OCD, what is it? Control. I feel the need to control the door right over there. I got to open it, lock it, control. So when we look at some of the defilements here, it has to do with control. That is not a body that is tranquil in my book. So when, so Gaya, Nupassana in Vipassana, we want to really hone in on these words. These words are like that mental bathe. And when we reflect on bathing, that tub, right? Trust me, there's not one here in this hotel. A tub where you just lay there, with these bubble baths, and it's just calm and just peace and serenity, just tranquil for once in your life. Taste peace for once in your life before you die, And I think paragraph number 10 does it really justice about body becoming tranquil and what it means for all of us having to take the rest that is very much needed. But I'd like to yield the floor back. We have 3 more minutes, but thank you for letting me contribute the essence of this sutta.
So thank you, Venerable Tridao. Now, Venerable Ayya Soma, I would like to hear from you about your understanding and reading of this sutta. I know you and Venerable Bhante Sudaso also I think had a discussion or Dhamma talk on this sutta. Would you like to share your insights?
Thank you, Bhante. Yes, I think I shared a bit of reflections at the very beginning. So I just wanted to add with the last minutes that we have that I very much resonate with what Venerable Ananda and Venerable Tridao just somewhat pointed out. Essentially, sometimes, obviously, being a bhikkhuni, I'm very enthusiastic about the Dhamma and the teachings of the Buddha. And obviously, very enthusiastic about sharing them with many people, both in the United States and in my country. But this enthusiasm really comes from an experiential stance. So it's from practicing the teachings of the Buddha that actually we really see how they work. And I feel like even though there is lots of benefit, lots of goodness, obviously, in the Western way of approaching psychology and it's development, that I feel sometimes it's a little bit like what we call like the discovery of America, It's like a discovery of America, but America had been here, like the people who were living in America already had discovered it a long time ago. So sometimes that's how I feel like it's approached, like the discovery of the mind, the discovery of the heart, the discovery of human suffering. Like there are all these latest news, meditation works to release this and that, or that, perhaps anger is a poison of the mind. But actually, even there, sometimes people go back and forth and they're like, no, actually, anger is a good thing. So people can get a little bit confused. So that's what I find really incredible, that the teachings of the Buddha are, 2,500 years old, and actually longer than that. They were without discoverable beginnings. So the Buddha actually just what he did was finding, doing the work to really find how the mind works and teach us how essentially to attain liberation from complete suffering, not 10% less grumpy, not 10% less greedy, not 10% happier, but actually 100%, the complete elimination. And it's incredible how this works. So we can talk about this suttas over and over again, but when we actually really follow the teachings that are being given to us, so then we can really see that dispassion, that, what I was talking about earlier, that patience without the irritation, that actually knowing the defilements and becoming dispassionate of the defilements because we actually see them, rather than from an intellectual idea, or rather because we think we have to do it, but actually we see it for what it is, and we're like, I really don't need this. I can lay down the burden. I can free myself from suffering. And it's something so simple. So we can have these like tastes of micro liberation that open up the heart to the teachings of the Buddha, and even the things that we haven't experienced yet. Then I think that gives us the momentum, the inspiration to keep going in this path, and possibly then get into the Sangha, possibly then also establish monasteries. It's a lot of work, but it's really worth it for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Thank you so much, Venerable Ayya. So with your insights, I would like to conclude today's bi-weekly discussion. Today, by the way, we had the discussion session number 73. So it's a great joy for us to have this unity and discuss Dhamma together. So before we end this program, let us recite the Ovada Patimokkha verses. I don't think we have normally those monks who recite the gathas, they are not here, but let me recite those verses together with you. Sabba papassa akaranang kusalassa upasampada sacitta pariyodapanang etang buddhana sasanang Khanti paramang tapotitikka Nibbanang paramang vadanti buddha Nahi pabbajito parupaghati Nasamano hoti parang vihitayanto Anupavado anupaghato patimokkhe cha sangvaro mattanyuta cha bhattasming pantan cha sayanasanang adhicitte cha ayoga Etang buddhana sasanang. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So my gratitude to all of you, venerable monks and nuns, for coming together to discuss the Dhamma. It was a beautiful discussion we had. So we made a lot of merits by the grace and power of all these merits. And by the grace and power of the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha, may you all be blessed with the longevity, good health, happiness, and peace. May Devas, celestial beings, continue to protect all of you with the divine blessings for your health and safety. May all blessings be with you. Sabbe satta bhavantu sukhitatta. May all sentient beings be well, happy, and peaceful. So with this in mind, I would like to say good night to all of you from Toronto, Canada. I'm hoping to see you all again in 2 weeks' time. So be well. Bye. Good night.